Some of them want to fly. Some of them want to build. Some of them want to understand, the physics of it. So it's very broad-based in that sense that there's a lot you can cover. And you can engage different students who have different interests, still based around the same piece of technology.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 145. What are the business opportunities in the STEM education sector? For that question, we turn to Ron Poynter, president of OnPoynt Aerial Solutions, the nation's leading supplier of drone education kits and training for STEM education. OnPoynt Aerial Solutions was established in 2012, following the passage of the FAA Modernization and Reform Act. In this episode of the Drone Radio Show, Ron talks about the company, the rise of drone technology in STEM education programs, and the challenges and rewards of serving the education market. It's a great example of how one entrepreneur found an opportunity to serve a niche market while doing something really worthwhile. So let's learn more about the business of serving the drone STEM education market with Ron Poynter of OnPoynt Aerial Solutions. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Ron to introduce himself.
Well, my name is Ron Poynter, and I am the owner of OnPoynt Aerial Solutions, and we are a drone education company. We sell drone education kits nationwide.
Ron, how did OnPoynt come about? Where did the idea come from, and why this market?
Reading through an article in a newspaper in February 2012, I saw that the law had been changed. The FAA Modernization Reform Act had been signed, and the ramifications of what that was going to be were pretty obvious to me. My background, I was a military Army helicopter pilot for many years, and so I had a real good understanding of what manned aircraft can do and what unmanned aircraft are going to be able to, the gap they're going to be able to fill. So the first work we started was in 2013, starting to do education work. Part of the reason for that is it was legal to do. As someone with a commercial pilot's license, I certainly had something to lose if I was going to go out and step outside the rules, and that wasn't something I was going to do anyway. So education was really kind of the first thing we could do where we could start to make inroads into the drone industry. And it was a great way to energize kids. In 2013, they knew what drones were, but most kids hadn't seen one. Now, that's not the case today. But that's kind of how we got started, and we've been building in that niche, in that sector ever since.
What's different about serving the education market as compared to the commercial sector?
First of all, our perspective has always been that to engage kids and really get them involved and really get them interested, we needed to have something they could put their hands on and not just fly a drone around in an open park. So our program has always been centered around kids building and putting together a kit. So what makes this area kind of unique is in commercial drone applications, it's always manufactured, already configured aircraft for the most part. There are some that are very specialized, but that's really not the mainstay. So for education, what we thought was important was that we gave them a kit that they had to build, they had to put together, and it provided teachers an opportunity to explain a little bit of aerodynamics, some physics about how they fly, electronics about how they go together, talk about the math and the algorithms that those flight controllers have to go through in order to keep the aircraft stable.
Does it come with a lesson plan for teachers as well?
Yes, we have a lot of material on how to put it together, as well as scenarios for them to use and background information. We're putting together lesson plans right now that'll be kind of a conglomerate, a mix of some videos as well as some slides and teaching material, and then some built-in quizzes. So those are some of the things that we're working on.
So let's zero in on the products for the education market. Can you tell us about them?
Currently, we offer about 5 or 6 different drone kits, and they're different types. Most of them are quadcopters that are flying. We also have an underwater ROV kit, and we're getting ready to come out with a couple of others. But the main ones we use are they're the standard 450 millimeter aircraft kits, flight controllers, electronic speed controllers, motors, propellers, all those things. And they also come with batteries, remote controls, chargers. And we try to include a lot of things that we think are important to have a good, safe program. Having a background in Army aviation, safety was really a big thing. And so we kind of brought that into the classroom. So we provide several pieces of equipment, safety glasses and some other things. But also we have a series of videos, one of which is just about setting up a safe flying area. And we're using the FAA's standards, what they consider best practices to do that. So what we try to provide to the teachers is a complete kit of everything they need to build and put the aircraft together, instructions, as well as reference material and a fair number of videos on how it goes together, and then some of the things that we think are important from a safety standpoint. We have one video that's really just about battery safety and charging.
What kind of response are you getting from educators?
I will tell you, it's all over the map. We have sold to middle schools, high schools, universities. We've sold to public libraries. It's really kind of all over. And it's the interest in STEM education. It's the interest in bringing in new technology to the STEM arena. But we're getting it from all over. One of the latest trends we're seeing is schools are starting to set up drone racing teams. And that's a new product that we're offering this year, our drone racing kits. So sets of 4, 6, or 8 aircraft, plus the racing gates and all of the things you need, the FPV goggles for these schools to set up racing teams. And we're seeing that as a really big trend this year.
Is drone racing set up within a traditional STEM education program, or is it more of a recreational activity?
It's being moved a bit to a recreation, but what's kind of fun about it from a teaching standpoint is most of these drones have to be built and put together. So you can still sneak in some science and some fun learning pieces on the technology side, even to kids who really just want to fly around and race. To do that, they have to build and put it together. They have to configure it. So there's things they have to learn and do as they go along. But we are seeing it a little bit more in recreation. It can kind of cut into both areas, frankly.
How are schools finding out about OnPoynt?
We sell through our website as well as through a couple of online e-sellers, and they've been great partners for us. But our OnPoynt website is probably where we've had most of our business.
For schools that have a long-standing robotics program, have you encountered any hesitancy on their part to starting a new initiative around drones?
We've run into some of that. Some of it is folks a little bit gun-shy about something they don't really know or understand all that well. At OnPoynt, we've had some early adopters who have just been all in and really jumped into it and really embraced it. We've had others that we've talked to several times, and they're just not quite ready to move on it yet. But, that cycle of innovators, early adopters, we're kind of in the early adopter phase now. I think we're starting to move a little bit past that. So we're starting to see more and more interest. I think part of it, too, is there were some concerns about aviation regulations and what the rules were. But we were fortunate in May of 2016, the FAA came out with a memorandum that was about educational use of unmanned aircraft systems. And it was very clear what schools could do and what they couldn't do with that. And it really opened the door for schools that were concerned about what the rules were and not violating the rules. And the FAA has been much better in the last couple of years about laying out, if a school is going to use these drones in education, what rules they need to follow. And essentially, they have to follow the rules for model aircraft, and they're considered recreational users.
Do the drones have to be used on school grounds?
Most of them are used on school grounds. I don't know of any that are being used other places, but that doesn't mean that they are not. We promote and put in some literature that we offer with our kits, know before you fly information, as well as we give a copy of that FAA memorandum. We also have data pulled off of the FAA's website. It's called Fly for Fun Under the Special Rules for Model Aircraft, and it really kind of lays out very clearly what the rules, how they need to operate.
Are there any success stories of how schools are embracing the technology?
We've had some really great feedback from schools as far as things that they're trying to do. So one of the things that we did in our early work at OnPoynt was we did summer camps. And so in these camp programs, we brought groups of students in, and we did that process of building the aircraft, configuring the flight controller, explaining to them the different pieces and how this drone flies, because they don't fly like helicopters and they don't fly like airplanes, and the physics of how that works. So what we found is that after we did all those pieces, we did scenario flying. And so we would put a video camera on the aircraft. We would have a pilot and spotter team work together, and the spotter would be talking via a walkie-talkie to another group of students that were in another area watching a live feed from the video of the aircraft. And we set scenarios up where they had to, we had an example, a empty 55-gallon drum with a hazmat label on it. And so the scenario was that they had to see, what did that label say? What was the number on that label and what did it mean? But the pilots flying the aircraft and the spotter, they couldn't see the aircraft. They had to maneuver the aircraft into the right position, but they had to take directions from the folks who are watching the live video. So it was really about problem solving and making them use teamwork, because we've always stressed that at OnPoynt that these are tools and not toys. Yes, they're fun to fly around, but for the most part, no one goes out to fly a drone for a living by themselves for the most part. It's almost always in a team. And it was important for us to stress that these are tools and not toys, and that these kids learn to work in teams and communicate back and forth and bring themselves together, bring their team together and try to solve a problem. And they had great fun doing it.
What opportunities do you see in drone racing?
Drone racing has become more and more popular. There's a couple of large drone racing leagues. They have videos now out on YouTube. So it's very exciting. And so when you watch the live video, so the way drone racing works, for those who don't know, the drone has a small camera on the nose of it. The pilot is wearing these FPV goggles, first-person view goggles, and they're typically sitting on a lawn chair with a remote control in their hand, and they're flying these drones at can be speeds up to 150 miles an hour as they race over these different courses. And they have to go through gates and over hoops. Sometimes there's vertical challenges they have to navigate through. So it's very exciting, and it can be very fast. We did a camp this past summer with Girl Scouts, and they just had a good time doing it. It was more an obstacle course for them. They weren't flying at great speeds, but they did enjoy doing it. And so we're seeing that as a great trend. Purdue University this past spring in 2017 had a first collegiate drone race at their campus, and they had 26 teams show up to race. So it was really quite a big event, and it really helped spur it on. We're working with a local university in the Dallas area that wants to set up a drone racing club as a precursor to establishing drone racing teams and possibly sponsoring a drone racing event in the fall of this year or possibly the spring of next year.
Are the products and services provided by OnPoynt available only online, or do you go on site to help users set everything up?
We have gone on site many times to help folks. We're located in the Dallas area, and we sell nationwide. So it can be a little bit challenging. Folks are, can be pretty far away. But anyone that's close enough for us to be able to get to in a reasonable amount of time, we're glad to do that. I've been to San Antonio, Houston, a couple of other places that are a few hours away. But anyway, we can help. We certainly will.
Is there anything in the rules and regulations that might be a threat to OnPoynt down the road?
Not that I can see, not that we can see from a regulation. If anything, rules are getting a little bit more manageable. Initially, there were some guidelines that didn't make a whole lot of sense for what was going on in education, but that's really kind of been clarified. And for the most part, schools, they want to do the right thing. If they're going to take a step into this, they want to do the right thing. And one thing I'd like to point out that the aircraft that we offer at OnPoynt, they're GPS stabilized aircraft. And the aircraft you can geofence them, essentially set altitude and distance limits. That way the aircraft, no matter what the student does, it can't go outside of a designated area. We typically recommend altitude limits of 100 feet of height and typically about 150 feet radius from a takeoff point. So you create essentially an invisible cylinder that aircraft cannot fly outside of. And we do demonstrations and have the students fly the aircraft at full speed straight up. And when it hits 100 feet, it just stops no matter what they do. And it's very reassuring to the teachers that the aircraft, kids can't fly it over a neighbor's house. They can't fly it in front of a school bus, over a swimming pool. So it gives teachers a lot of reassurance that, yes, things can go wrong as far as the kids operating them. Maybe someone gets it a little far away from them, they can't see it, or they have a problem. But the aircraft isn't going to go outside of a designated boundary.
What's your perspective on how drones fit into a STEM education curriculum?
The technology that makes drones fly really can cross a fair number of boundaries. some of the technology that makes these flight controllers work is really borrowed from the telecom industry. Small-sized GPS, the micro-sized accelerometers and gyros. That function where you take your smartphone and you rotate it, one way or another, and the image on the screen changes. Some of that same technology is what makes these aircraft easy to fly and keeps them stable. You can talk about batteries for the aircraft and go into quite a bit of detail as far as the current consumption, voltage, the resistance. You can get into a lot of the things that they're going to, use in other areas. Schools that have very robust robotics programs tend to be a little bit ahead of the game because they are used to some of the mechanical things. But what we have to remind teachers that this isn't a robot that you just take outside and fly. Once it's in the air, it's essentially an aircraft. And so the rules are a little bit different. But they tend to have a little bit of a head start with that. But a lot of that technology they're using already. Some of the aircraft education drones are codable as well. So there are a couple of them out there that they use essentially like a block coding like Snap or Tinker, and they can set up little flight programs and make the drones fly. And those are typically small drones and typically used indoors. But there's another one that you actually go and actually plug in the C++ language into the flight controller before it'll work. So there are some that are very clearly computer science implications for them, and they're natural extensions of what some of the students are doing already.
In your opinion, what should educators consider before creating a drone STEM education program?
I think there's a couple of things that are important. They need to at least understand kind of what the rules are to make sure that they know what they're getting into. And the rules are generally very easy to comply with. And the only place you might have a little bit of a challenge if you're very close to a very large airport. So if someone's within 2 or 3 miles of the Atlanta airport, probably going to have a conversation with the folks at the airport or with the FAA to make sure they understand what the rules are, make sure the FAA isn't going to have an issue with them doing something. The other is that these are mechanical devices, and as kids fly, they're going to crash from time to time, they're going to have to rebuild them and put them back together. They're going to have a little bit of parts replacement, not extensive. We haven't seen a whole lot of that. But I think they need to understand those rules, understand some of that, and they really have to understand the aircraft and how it works themselves. Where we've seen some of the best results are where teachers really dive into it, really get a good understanding of it, and can put them together and operate them. Those seem to do the best and enjoy them the most.
What do you enjoy most about doing business in the education sector?
Probably one of the most rewarding pieces of this business is that you really feel like you're kind of making a difference with kids and you're introducing something exciting into a classroom. And that's probably some of the most important. We've gone out to several schools in the Dallas area that have drones and worked with them, taught them how they fly. I've got several years, 5 years of drone experience and many years of general aviation experience. So it's great to be able to share some of that and really kind of get the excitement. Sometimes the students are really into building it. They love building it. They love understanding it. They love putting it all together. Some of them want to fly. Some of them want to build. Some of them want to understand, the physics of it. So it's very broad-based in that sense that there's a lot you can cover. And you can engage different students who have different interests, still based around the same piece of technology. So that's been exciting for me.
So what's the future hold for OnPoynt Aerial Solutions?
So for OnPoynt this year, we're going to introduce some new products. We've got, like I said, several quadcopters we offer. Just started putting out information about an advanced drone we're going to start to offer. It's got an advanced flight controller on it. This past year, recently, we introduced an underwater ROV kit. We're hoping to make some modifications of that and continue to promote that. We're going to have a fixed wing drone that will have some of those same features that we think are important as far as being able to geofence it, things like that. And this year we had one of the fun things we got to build was we built a pizza drone. So it's a quadcopter. It holds about a 10-inch pizza. And we're going to do some video work with it. But we've sold one to a school here in Texas. And so we're curious to see how much fun they have with it. There's been Domino's and some others have been talking about doing pizza deliveries with drones for a while. And a lot of it's just kind of fun to think about, with Amazon talking about deliveries.
Are you going to do anything like the College Drone Racing Championship this year? Working
with this local university, we hope to help them put together a drone club. and put on a drone racing event. We'd like to do something possibly as early as the fall of this year. Probably can't do something this spring. It's a little too soon. Maybe an event in the summertime as well. But we hope to put on a drone racing event at this university. They're fortunately in a very good spot as far as airspace is concerned. And there's willingness on the part of the staff at the university to do it. So we're excited about that.
Is there anything that we missed that we should talk about?
We're really excited about this technology. We're continuing to develop new products. And we encourage teachers, if they have an interest, reach out and give us a call. We're glad to tell them anything they want to know about it so they can have a good understanding and they decide they want to go forward with this. And look at our website at onpoynt.com, onpoynt.com.
And for my final question, Ron, what message would you like to leave about the importance of drones in the education system?
I think the important thing about incorporating drones into an education program, whether it's STEM or robotics, is that they have an understanding of what the technology can bring to the classroom. You know, it's exciting, it's interesting, it brings a vertical dimension, a third dimension to robotics and to STEM, and it's a very exciting thing to do.
That's it for episode 145 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Ron Poynter of OnPoynt Aerial Solutions and learning how one company has found its niche serving the STEM education sector. I want to thank Ron for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about OnPoynt Aerial Solutions or want to connect with Ron, check out the webpage at onpoynt.com, and that's spelled onpoynt.com. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to patreon.com/Drone Radio Show. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.